an investigator. I'm tackling the tough and confusing subject of sustainability. Like, what is sustainable fabric and clothing? What does it all really mean? Today, I'm starting with a basic need for a lot of us: coffee. Starbucks is certainly making an effort towards sustainability, but they could do more.
You're watching All That Buzz with Victoria.
We are talking to a new coffee company, Chik Monk. They have a special focus on sustainability, and they are the rage here in Palm Beach. I'm finally here to talk with you about this wonderful, fabulous coffee that I am so happy I found. What prompted you to start a coffee place here in Palm Beach where it's like overwhelmed with a bunch of Starbucks and like coffee from the breakers? Where did you get the idea from?
Vicky, as you've been here a few times, and we thank you for coming back and doing this, first of all. My family's been growing coffee for 4 generations now, so we have the coffee farms in India for over 4 generations, which I would say is 100 plus years. We've been in the growing business. And then in 2010, I met David, my husband, in India at a coffee shop drinking Indian coffee. And his family has been in the restaurant business in the US, and they also had some major restaurants in Palm Beach. His family was part of the Chuck and Harold's and Charlie's Crab in Palm Beach, so they were already established in the hospitality business. My family was established in the growing business. So when we got married, we also sort of married our background, our business background, and we came up with the idea to retail coffee here, and we started off in Palm Beach.
So tell me more about your coffee. What makes it unique, and the growing process, and or where you get the beans from, what kind of trees they are?
I wouldn't compare myself or Chik Monk to other coffee shops locally, because most of the coffee shops import coffee from other farms and countries, and they're mostly focused on either roasting the coffee locally or serving it. We grow the coffee in India. It's very rare to find Indian origin coffees here in the US. We control the supply chain. We've contract roasted with someone that roasts it for us every week, specialty roaster in Florida. And so it's literally the whole supply chain from the growing to your cup, which is why it's called From Our Mountains to Your Cup. All our coffee comes from 3,500 to 4,000 feet above, up to 6,000 feet elevation. Elevation makes a huge difference in the quality of the coffee, because the air is slightly purer as you go up. The soil is more virgin. You don't have too much, if anything's been used, it doesn't spill down. And also ours is grown at slopes, so it's not like other countries where they just send these tractors and shake the trees and pick the coffee. Ours is hand-picked. I was just in India 10 days ago, hand-picking coffee, and it is extremely difficult. So we get skilled workers that come and stay at the plantations, and everything is hand-tended. The weeds, we don't use weedicides or pesticides, so it's all, the weeds are taken out. I mean, we have machines, but people go out, take them.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's all grown under shade. So again, we have skilled workers that come during that season, climb up the trees, and just kind of, cut down what needs to. The quality of coffee, again, sustainability and quality go hand in hand. It's not just talking about saving the environment, which is very important.
Right.
Our sustainable practices from the farm go with following the wildlife, conserving the environment, the farm workers and everything. We also follow that and continue the ethos right up to the store. Our retail bags are all fully compostable, including the vent. Our cups, straws, lids, everything at the shop is plastic-free, plant-based, and fully compostable.
What are the differences and similarities between the two countries, which I know some, but not like you know them?
I wear like 2 completely different hats. When I'm in India, I'm wearing the farmer hat. When I'm here, I'm wearing, more like the barista, the retail, the marketing hat. It is hard again, seeing things in India. People sometimes don't realize the lifestyle, but living in the farm, having the clean air and wild animals. I mean, how many people can expect to wake up and see wild elephants just walking around, or tigers? So it's different. And then we also, back in India, we support the education of children, and especially female children in local coffee communities. A lot of female children get left behind. They go to high school and the families don't support their, the higher education like college. So again, seeing the people that work here for me going to university, and then seeing them not being able to, so my father, while growing the coffee, supports them and makes sure that they go to college. And we also donate a portion of our profits towards that cause.
Oh, so I have to buy more coffee then, right?
That would be helpful.
Are there any rituals that have to do with making coffee?
Growing up in India, we had this festival, which we still follow, called Ayudh Puja. That's where the coffee communities, the workers and everyone come together. We sort of pray to the local gods for a good crop, because a good crop also supports the local communities. Everyone gets together at the end of the day and has a good feast. That's one of them. And we also, in the shop, I have Ganesha, who's known for removing any obstacles. Goddess Lakshmi, who's is called the goddess of prosperity. And this time I just got back from India for the harvest, and I got the blessings from a local goddess in Sringeri to bring back abundance and for this next harvest, which for me, I think it translates into energy, and that kind of translates into making a good cup of coffee. And people come here and it's a cup of love.
Oh, that sounds sweet. I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vicky, for coming.
This is beautiful, thank you. It's actually really good coffee. I don't even drink coffee. I'm a tea girl, but they've converted me because it's not acidic, and it's really, really nice. And they give me the extra foam, so how can I go wrong? Really, that's it. Perfect.
You're watching All That Buzz with Victoria. Vicky, we welcome Mike Terrell, representing the Palm Beach Zoo and Conservation Society. Mike Terrell on set.
Hi, Mike. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So glad you can make it today. What is your job at the zoo?
So my official title is Curator of Animal Experiences, but that encompasses quite a bit. So the mission of the Palm Beach Zoo is to engage people with wildlife, having them go out and taking actions to preserve wild places. And so the best way that we can do that is to get them up close and personal with our animals and meet them one-on-one. So that's pretty much where guests and animals come together. That's my job.
What is your focus on conservation? Like what are the things that you do at the zoo to help sustainability and conservation? And
so that is the heart and soul of who we are. So what we really strive to do is be a leader in that area and walk the walk. So for example, at the zoo, from a sustainability point of view, we have been able to work with some of our vendors, our food vendors, to remove all single-use plastics from our restaurants.
fabulous.
Yeah,
I like that.
it was really hard to do, and it took a long time, but through a lot of hard work and determination, we were able to do it. So we don't have any straws in the zoo. All of our water bottles are in cans, not plastic bottles. Our vendor, who also runs our gift shop for us, the products in there are also sustainable. So for example, we've got these cute little plushies that are made out of recycled plastic, just as soft as normal ones, but they had that sustainability piece with them, and using repurposing packaging and everything like that too.
That's great. So, and I'm sure they use paper bags.
Yeah, absolutely. And so
I'm not sure, but I hope they would. Right?
Yeah, so we don't have any plastic bags in the zoo for sure.
Is your effort only here in Florida, or do you interact with other zoos, other professional places?
it's not too hard to realize that the environmental situation around the world needs help. And so we work a lot with different facilities and different organizations, not only in the state of Florida, but around the world. So for example, we've got 3 different conservation projects that we work towards here in Florida. One is our coral conservation, where we work with the state of Florida, going out and doing coral surveys along the Florida Reef Tract. You know, if you want to think about, you know, ask yourself how important coral is. So take a breath. Okay. Take a second breath. Okay. That second breath, you can thank the oceans for. Half of the oxygen that's produced in our atmosphere comes from the ocean.
From coral?
From coral, from algae. So it's extremely important that we protect our oceans just so that we can breathe.
So it's the same thing as like on Earth, more trees, more oxygen for us. So under the water too, more green, more algae, more coral,
Yeah.
more oxygen.
Absolutely. And so on land, we've got 2 other projects. One involves Florida panthers, and the other involves swallowtail kites. And so both of those animals need a wide range in order to nest, in order to hunt, in order to live. And so we advocate for wildlife corridors. The zoo doesn't have a particular political affiliation one way or another. We just care about the environment. So we find ourselves in a unique position of being able to bring together you know, political entities, governmental agencies, private individuals, and corporations that want to do the right thing. And then they can come to the zoo and we can all work together to create wildlife corridors for all these animals.
It's amazing. And I was reading up a little bit, doing a little research before I met you about the noise, underwater noise, like how it can be like so disparaging to the wildlife under the water, and then even to some wildlife that stays on the surface.
So, you know, I work a lot with people. I've been doing this for about 20 years, and I look a lot at those interfaces where humans and animals come together, whether it's at the zoo or whether it's in the wild. And I think a lot of people just don't realize the impact that they have. So when you're on a boat and you're you know, enjoying the day with your friends and family, that surface of the water that you're sitting on, everything below you is out of sight and out of mind. But whether it's the engine noise, whether it's people throwing trash overboard, all of that does have an impact underwater. Now, we can never rewind to the point where humans aren't going to impact the wild. We have to learn how to integrate with it. Right. And so it's just being aware of it and moderating our impact to make sure that the wild places stay wild.
Also, I heard that you were a scuba diver.
Yeah, so that was really my entry into the world of wildlife. So I'm originally from Indiana, grew up in the middle of a cornfield. My parents didn't let me have like dogs or cats, but I was able to have everything else. So I would have fish, and lizards, and hamsters, things like that. But I also grew up watching things like Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom.
Hello, welcome to Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom.
And The Adventures of Jacques Cousteau. And as a kid growing up in Indiana, I never thought that would be something that I would be able to see with my own eyes. Then I got to college, and my college, Indiana University, go Hoosiers.
Of course.
Yeah. They had a class in scuba diving. And so I took the class and I absolutely fell in love. And what happened to me is the type of experience that we want anybody coming to the zoo to have, which is when I went out to do my certification dives, I discovered an animal that I didn't know existed. Wow. And so we were down underwater and we were on this wreck, and there's all this life everywhere. Wrecks, when they go underwater, attract all kinds of wildlife. And this giant stingray comes swimming by. And my first thought was, it's gonna eat us. I've learned now that a stingray isn't going to eat you, right? But it was absolutely unbelievable, and it was 50 feet long and giant, and it was you know, that's what was going through my mind.
Amazing, overwhelming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then it checked us out. It was curious, and then left. And I said, that was amazing. That was something that I want to make sure my kids can see, that other people get to experience. And that was my entry into loving the outdoors and loving wildlife. And then I learned more about them, and I learned that I was never in danger or anything like that. And then that's what inspired me I ended up with a degree in underwater archaeology. And
I never even knew that existed.
I know. But it was my passion to be underwater is what drove me to that. And the historical piece is interesting and fun, but like I said, when a wreck goes underwater, it creates a habitat. And so we did a lot of coral monitoring and how you would have a wreck and it would go into an area where there's absolutely no life. And within months, once it's down underwater, it would start attracting life. And so you would change the ecosystem in a positive way that way.
Yeah. Now, what about, I was listening to somebody else before about how do you feel when like children or people that are from inner cities or they come to the zoo for the first time, similar to like how you felt? You were not surrounded by water.
Yeah.
Does it excite you to watch other kids and people get excited as well? Is that that must be a major plus for you?
Absolutely. So, that was one of the things I learned at the aquarium when I worked there is, when you want to, humans connect with humans the most easily, right? There's a lot of behavioral psychology that goes into this. So then when you ask yourself, how do you connect somebody to an animal? It's usually an animal that's going to look most like a human. So like a primate, something like that, or something furry and warm. So when you start getting into some animals that aren't furry or warm, it gets a little harder. And so when I was at the aquarium, there was this eel. His name was Frankenstein. And we wanted to connect him to the guests. And when we would show him to the guests, they would be like, that's a big snake, it's green, it's got big, scary teeth, it's gonna eat me. It was all these negative sorts of things. So we said we can't do that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna connect people to the people that take care of Frankenstein. So we would put a diver underwater, they would have a mask on, and they'd be able to talk to the guests. And they would just go down and start talking about Frankenstein's story. And the reason Frankenstein was called Frankenstein was because he got in a little tussle with one of the other eels. And then we had to do some surgery on him to patch him up. And just surgery on an eel? Well, of course, we have veterinary care for all of our animals. It's very important to take care of our animals. And while they're doing this, Frankenstein would swim out, wrap himself around the diver, and just be sitting right here. And people would be like, what, aren't you scared? And they're like, no, it's just Frankenstein, it's no big deal.
How big are their teeth?
They're pretty big and sharp, and
Really?
they've got like 2 jaws. They can be very intimidating.
Wow,
They're absolutely amazing animals. But what we were able to do is people would walk away from that and they wouldn't say that's a big scary snake or something, or it's dangerous. It's, I didn't realize that they took such great care of their animals. And now I know Frankenstein. And I can tell you Frankenstein's story. And so what people started realizing is that when you connect people to individual animals and they understand their stories, then you're touching them here.
Right.
Right. You're not trying to engage them intellectually, you're engaging them emotionally. And I'm forming this bond with this particular animal. Now that's going to inspire change.
Right. So the love grows.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
And positive works so much better than negative. If you watch the news and everything, it feels overwhelming, right? But if I can make a connection with a lorikeet at the zoo, for example.
I never even really heard of that. What is that, like a parrot?
It's a small Australian parrot, yeah. And you can come to the zoo, you can get a little cup of nectar that they love, and they'll come down and I can form an individual relationship with an animal, but they're extremely important pollinators. Right? So in Australia, they keep the plants alive and they keep the ecosystem running because they're very important pollinators. So you form this relationship with this bird and like, okay, I get what a pollinator is, what can I do to help? And we can just tell you, well, turn your backyard into a small state park, right? So set it up so that wildlife can inhabit your yard. So if you do that, and you do that, and you do that, and everybody basically takes the idea that I can set up my backyard as a wildlife-friendly habitat, oh my gosh, that's such an amazing step to protecting the environment as a whole.
And that's a big part of the zoo, right? the wildlife and the different vegetation, the ecosystem. You have your own ecosystem at the zoo, right?
Yeah, we want to make it completely immersive. We say all the time, when people see maybe the white ibis that are there and their fly-ins, and one of our resident wood ducks had a girlfriend who was a wild duck that flew in and would visit him from time to time. But the habitats are so great that even the wild animals want to come live there.
So what are some of the special projects or programs you have going at the zoo?
Just by coming to the zoo, you can help save wildlife. So like I mentioned, we have a lot of different conservation projects, and every dollar from your ticket that when you come into the zoo goes directly towards those conservation efforts. So,
Wow.
So not only our conservation efforts here, but we also work with different groups, whether it's in Panama with jaguars or over Malaysia with tigers. But just by coming to the zoo, you can help save wildlife.
Well, that's fabulous, because I'm going to the zoo. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.